So now we have some gouged cane. Some of you are going to be actually buying it at this stage. If you've gone through all the hard work to get it to this stage, this is when it gets exciting because we're getting closer to a finished reed. One part of my process now has been to use a hardness tester. It's something I didn't use before, but I found it actually essential because it dictates which way I'm going to go with these pieces of cane, depending on how hard they are. A hardness tester has a small ball bearing that it puts into the cane a certain distance, and if it goes further, the cane is softer, and if it goes less, the cane is harder. And there's many different makes of this, and they're not calibrated the same, and the measurements aren't the same. And even with this particular one, I find that friends who have the same machine, the calibration's not the same. So you have to keep a record of your own measurements. So I'm going to stick a piece of cane in here. I'm going to zero the gauge, and I'm going to move that ball bearing into the cane, and it's going to give me a reading. And this one has given me a reading of, it's going in 0.15 of a millimetre, which happens to be my sweet spot. So I'm going to write that on that one. I'm going to do that again with another piece. Do a couple more. That's 19. So that's a softer piece of cane. Last one. 12. Right, good. And that's harder. So that's quite interesting because it's giving me the two extremes and some in the middle. The ones in the middle are the ones I'm most interested in, and the ones at the extremes I'm going to do two very different things with, which we're going to talk about in a bit. But it's mainly to do with what shape I'm going to use to make these reeds. And that really is to do with how hard the cane is. If the shape is too narrow and the cane is very hard, we'll end up with a very sharp, very resistant reed. And conversely, if the cane is very soft and we try to make a wide shape, the thing collapses. So there is a sort of art to finding out if you're going to buy a certain shape all the time and you say, I always use this shape, then maybe this would eliminate a lot of wastage for you. If you're willing to experiment with different shapes, I've found I can actually make a working reed out between certain parameters. And if it's below, for me, on my gauge 10, I'm not even going to try and make it because it's just too hard, and I've tried and they just come out like rocks. And if it's above, or for my gauge about 22, the cane is so wide-grained and soft, again, it's just going to come out as mush. But within that range, you get an idea of what you can do with that cane to get the maximum usage from your cane. And that's why a hardness test is now part of my kit.